G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Chris Gwinn from Great Lakes Advisory based in Chicago, United States of America. Thanks for your time today, Chris.
Thanks for having me on, Troy.
Let's start with how we know each other. So I reached out on LinkedIn and thought you'd be an ideal guest to have on for our audience, and really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, of course.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Yeah, so I think before I even get into kind of how we actually make money, I think it might be helpful to kind of just set the stage, talk a little bit about kind of who we are, kind of where we came from, and my entire entrepreneurial journey. And it all started off a little over probably 7 years ago now. At the time, I was a portfolio manager at Northern Trust, which is kind of a large trust and estate bank based here in Chicago, Illinois. I was managing about $85 million in assets, and then wrapping up with my CFA exam, which stands for like a chartered financial analyst. It's like the investment equivalent of the CPA exam. Studied a ton, and then basically had zero free time up until that point. But finally, once I wrapped up that exam, I had a little bit more free time on my hands. At the same time, my dad is a business owner and was really struggling to keep his head above water. He was constantly putting out fires, dealing with internal issues. Employees weren't following tasks the correct way, employee turnover, you name it. Overall, it was a struggle to be able to manage. And so he approached me and asked me if I wouldn't mind taking a look at some of the operations, the business, to see if there's any opportunities to make it a little bit easier to manage. And I mean, he's my dad. I've got a lot of loyalty towards family. So I was more than happy to take a look. And so I began dissecting their operations, reviewing their financials, interviewing their employees. And I come to find out that they had absolutely zero defined processes, zero documented standard operating procedures, and zero formalized training of any sort. It was essentially throw the employees to the wolves, see if they can figure the shit out on their own. And so to me, it made a ton of sense why employees weren't following tasks the correct way. And for any audio only listeners, I'm using quotation marks there, but because there really wasn't a correct way to be able to do anything, because nothing was actually defined. So my initial thought around trying to make this business a little bit easier to manage was that if we can clearly define all of the processes within the organization and create standard operating procedures that would outline these step-by-step instructions leading to a specific result or outcome, and then build training around those processes, standard operating procedures, responsibilities, all of that tribal knowledge, that hopefully that would better prepare employees for success and make the business a little bit easier to manage. And so I began interviewing every single one of their employees to have a conversation, gaining a deep understanding of what does it actually take to perform your responsibilities? What are all the different processes that you need to actually follow on a daily basis? And from all of those conversations, took all of those conversations and turned them into documented processes, standard operating procedures, and training, capturing really the why behind why it's important to actually follow all of these operating procedures. And so it took me several months to be able to build that all out. But after I finished that entire project, I noticed something very impactful that happened. I noticed on the operations side, because we now had all of these clearly defined systems and processes in place, the business started actually running on repeatable processes. There was a correct way to actually perform every single one of the operating procedures and responsibilities within the organization. So as a result, that increased the overall consistency, which actually led to an increase in profitability because tasks were no longer falling through the cracks. And so as a result, the businesses actually became easier to manage because it was more consistent. But I also noticed the entire impact that happened on employee morale. And up until this point, there was zero training, a ton of confusion, vagueness as far as what I should and shouldn't be doing. Should I have already kind of known how to do this responsibility? I don't really want to ask my manager how to do this. But now that we had and built out all of these clearly defined systems and processes, and there was this dedicated resources that employees can actually lean on, overall employee morale actually increased, which also in turn improved overall employee retention, so all the above with being profitability increased, the business became, or the operations became more consistent, easier to manage, and employee retention actually improved, which all the above wildly exceeded my expectations. But I also noticed the entire impact that happened on the business owner, the entrepreneur, or in my case, my dad. And my dad is a little bit overweight. He also suffers from some heart complications, and much of that is likely stress induced. The fact that up until this point, the business is heavily reliant on the business owner's input to be able to manage the daily operations. But now that we had all of these clearly defined systems and processes in place, the business is running on repeatable processes that allows the business owner to actually remove themselves from the daily operations and actually effectively delegate many of those responsibilities. And so in my dad's case, that allowed him to actually reduce the number of working hours in a given week and actually focus a little bit more on alleviating that stress, exercising and eating properly, and then actually just improving his overall health and well-being. So just realizing the incredible impact that a solution like systems and processes and documented procedures could have on a business like this, I realized that there was certainly a much larger need for this type of solution outside of his business. So I opened up Great Lakes Advisory a little over 3.5, 4 years ago now to address a specific need. And we do that today by offering a done-for-you solution to documenting processes, clearly defining your standard operating procedures, and building a world-class training experience to get everyone aligned so the business runs on repeatable processes.
Yeah, Chris, I'm a big fan of the operations manual and SOPs, or standard operating procedures. It really hit me in the face when I read the E-Myth, probably 2004 or something like that. Michael Gerber spoke about that, and the turnkey solution. You can throw the keys of your business to someone else and go on holiday for 6 months. And that really resonated with me. So I've always been a big fan for the last 15, 16 years or so of documenting things that are repeatable, or even things that you might only do once a year. Market Manager Tools calls the Christmas rule. You cook a big Christmas lunch once a year and usually fuck it up because you've forgotten everything you did last year. So writing those procedures is hugely valuable for all the reasons you've just outlined. But for business owners listening, I think that you made a really good point there I want to drive home, is the value that is added to the business is twofold. It's a more profitable business, both from efficiency, but also that staff turnover or team turnover is a lot less. But also a lot of people miss the fact that the more reliant a business is on the owner or owners, the less valuable your business will be, because when you're getting valued, often they'll use the 3-year average, the last 3 years of your EBITDA or operating profit, use that average and then multiply it by a number, usually between 1 and 8 is my experience for unlisted companies. If it's solely dependent on one person, it's that 1 times multiplier. But if you've got a lot of structure, systems and procedures in place and good management and teams just humming away at the work, that number can inch closer up to the 8. So you can double the value of your business, if not triple, pretty easily by going through this process that you've just described and what you guys focus on.
Yep, exactly. I think you just nailed it right on the head. And it's basically just to kind of reinforce that point too. It's, do you have a business, or do you own a business, or do you just have a job? And if the business is heavily reliant on the business owner, you can't take a 6-month holiday or take a 30-day holiday. And if you did that, the business or operations would grind to the halt. Then you more than likely have a job or a business that you own that you happen to have a job within. But if you want to actually own a business, you need to have that business running on systems and processes and repeatable operations so that you can really scale through that glass ceiling.
And one of those things on team morale is not just less stress because they're making less mistakes, but it's also feedback from the managers. Usually it's just always negative. It's a saying I made up called managing by exception. Managers or humans by nature will only point things out when people have made a mistake, fuck something up. And that's quite demoralizing. So to turn that around, so there's a lot less mistakes, there's going to be a lot less of that negative feedback, and team members will be happier.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think a lot of times employees are just, hey, I'm nervous to even ask this question because I feel like maybe I probably should know this answer. Maybe it's been a little too long since I've trained, and I don't want to be judged if I actually ask my manager. I'm going to just wing it and just do it this way. And ultimately, that's probably not the true process of how it actually should be performed. And it's more out of fear of potentially being reprimanded. But if they have a dedicated resource and they have these standard operating procedures that they can rely and lean on, then there's really kind of removes all the guesswork with all of your routine tasks.
Yeah. And do you have a platform that you developed to hold all this information, or do you leverage an existing system that's out there?
Yeah, we tend to, we don't actually own any type of proprietary software. I think that there are a lot of really awesome LMS and wiki type platforms. We tend to use an application called Trainual a lot. It's spelled Trainual.
Yeah, I actually I had Chris, the founder, on the podcast of Trainual.
Yeah.
They're growing like the bejeebers. Episode 168. So that was, just before Christmas 2021, that went live. And yeah, phenomenal growth. And that's only 3 or 4 years old, that business as well, which I was blown away with, that no one was out there providing this first-class solution. And Chris, obviously, and the team thought it up and got it out there.
Yeah, no, he's, I actually was just on his podcast last week, but he is an awesome visionary, and they're doing some awesome work over at Trainual. So we really love working with that team. Got a really good relationship with them, but there's some other platforms out there too. And yeah, we don't own any type of proprietary software. We're really focused exclusively on just helping you get all those ideas and all those processes and build out that training and get it all out of your head and onto a platform.
And how old were you when you decided to make the jump and start your own business 4 years ago?
Well, I will be turning 32 next month. And so I was like 28.
Yep. Great. And do you have any key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over the last 4 and a bit years?
Yeah. So first year it started off at 50,000. So not that great, just trying to kind of test the market out, figuring out what works, what doesn't. And now today, well, actually just last year, finished up a little over 400. So
wow.
Still a lot of room to grow. I still feel like we're just getting started, but I've been pleased so far with kind of everything that we've built and the success that we've been able to achieve so far, but still hungry.
And that's good. And full-time equivalent team members, I'm guessing you started out on your own. What kind of number of people doing a 40-hour week on average now?
Yeah, so it was now, I started off, just myself. And I think for a lot of other entrepreneurs, you're just wearing a ton of hats. You're doing every single responsibility. And then I had to kind of prescribe to my own doctrine. It's like, we got to get all this stuff documented first, and before I can actually bring on new employees. And so it was a little slower because I was more methodical about getting it all documented before bringing people on. But now we're up to 8 employees.
Fantastic. And how did you go through COVID? Did you find an increase in demand? And I'm guessing all that would have had to be done remotely anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, interestingly enough, COVID, I think the one bright side is it actually kind of helped sort of add a little bit of rocket fuel to our growth, because a lot of business owners basically transitioned to almost 100% remote or primarily kind of a hybrid model. And I think a lot of business owners figured out that, hey, we can still serve all of our customers the same way that we were before from our own homes. But that did sort of emphasize the importance that, hey, I can't just go over to Troy's desk and just kind of train him and spend a few kind of minutes with him. We need to actually, it really emphasize the importance of having kind of a resource all built out and having some of those systems and processes and really setting those expectations from the jump with all of your training. So COVID, while I don't like to kind of paint in a positive light, it would end up actually being a pretty, maybe a tailwind for us.
When was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
Good question. I think, I don't know. I'm actually just I'm very driven. So I guess I'm always optimistic about kind of growth, yet very realistic. Yet I feel like I feel like the point where I felt like at least that, hey, this is going to work, which is probably, this is a business that I think I could continue to run long term, was probably once I started kind of getting all those systems and processes in place and allowed myself to be able to actually remove myself from a specific department. I mean, we're still kind of continuously building out kind of our sales department, our marketing, in the future, probably some of our HR and accounting and finance. But it really focused just on building out all of the operations and all of kind of our process and training leads and our associates, because those are really the frontline individuals that are meeting one-on-one with all of our clients. And I felt like I sort of succeeded once I was able to actually remove myself from that to be able to focus on the next department that I planned to build. And then just all of the other traction that we built outside of that with all of our marketing and sales as well.
What does success look like to you?
Success to me looks like I had the ability to control my own destiny, and I'm reaching my 10-year vision. So our 10-year vision is we want to be able to serve we want to build out actually about 50 teams all across the United States and potentially globally to be able to serve over 6,000 businesses every single year with building out all of the remote playbooks. And that it's not only just some of the numbers and the metrics, but my true success is what our solution can do for our clients. And really kind of our entire mission is that we can help position all of our clients to be able to become models of excellence within their industry. And what does that mean? It means that I want to be able to help our clients scale to the point where they're potentially going public, or they're on some type of Forbes or Fortune or like Inc. 5000 type list that they started off maybe a couple $1 million or maybe potentially less. And we were able to help implement and put those systems in place that allowed them to really 10x, 20x their entire business and be able to run on repeatable processes.
Yeah, 6,000 businesses a year. That's a good BHAG to have, big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yep. Jim Collins.
Yep. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Really understanding your target audience and interviewing all of your clients and really documenting all of the demographics and trying to collect as much information as possible. And doing additional research outside of that and creating kind of avatars or like buyer personas to kind of understand what are some of the behavioral characteristics of the decision maker, of the actual buyer of our product or service.
How did you fund the business?
The business was actually funded originally just by testing out our entire solution on my dad's business. And so started off just building out that, and from there figured out that it actually worked, then got a few more clients the first year and saved up and actually worked kind of almost 2 jobs, more of like a director, kind of COO at my dad's business, as well as being a portfolio manager. Saved up, I think I saved up 50,000 before I quit and went full time. And then I did take a loan for kind of 20,000 as well to kind of get us off the ground as well, just to kind of have a little bit of additional safety net.
But no other investors, just yourself?
Nope. This is solo entrepreneur, solo founder. I'm the only person that has capital at risk.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
I guess you can kind of, would I go into my industry as far as kind of learning management, kind of documenting processes?
Yeah.
I think, 100%. I believe wholeheartedly in, there's always going to be the need for training employees. Hopefully Jeff Bezos doesn't turn everyone into robots, and same with Elon Musk. But as long as there are still small businesses out there, there's still the need to train employees. And I don't think you can ever automate sales. I don't think you can ever automate all customer service. I don't think you can ever automate some of the nuances within a lot of professions. And as long as that exists, there's always going to be the need to train your employees. There's always going to be the need to document your processes. There's always going to be the need to ensure that your employees are actually following your processes. So 100%, I do it 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a real passion for this. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
So I would say the most stressful point was probably when earlier on in kind of our kind of history or origins, it started off kind of just helping kind of my dad's business, and it always started off with just documenting processes. But my true background is kind of financial and investments, and I have my CFA charter holder. I'm a little bit pretty tech savvy. I'm also pretty good with Excel, and I'm just thinking, hey, maybe I can do some of the more like financial analytics behind this. So we can offer financial analysts, we can basically analyze all the financials of your business and also operate in a CFO capacity as well. We could also, I don't really enjoy doing it, but there was always the need with training to be able to actually hire people and recruit people. So earlier on, I did do a few too many things. Yeah. And ultimately, when you try to be the jack of all trade, you end up almost becoming sort of the master of none. Yeah. So my recommendation is really to, or what I'd like to kind of stress is just figuring out what you do best, what your customers value the most, and dig as deep of a moat as possible and become just a master and an expert within that one single expertise and solution, and become just the dominant market player within your industry.
Yeah, great advice. I certainly made that mistake probably in the first 5 years of my now 22 small business career. And it's so easy to chase shiny objects or try to be all things to all people. And you've got to have that discipline and focus and stick with it. It will pay off. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
I feel like we probably worked the most on our overall kind of just customer experience. So I come from more of I guess all of my corporate background. It focuses a lot on just meeting one-on-one and being, in wealth management, investments, you're kind of almost like a psychologist to some of these individuals. There's a lot of like customer service. And so to be able to really effectively delegate much of the customer service part, I want to make sure that and really deliver kind of an all-star customer experience for every single one of our clients. It really needs to become ingrained in the culture and ensuring that that's followed by all. So I think when I was doing it myself and delivering all the other customer, I think I've always been able to kind of deliver that same level of customer experience, but it's really making sure that's creating the other systems and processes and standards for everyone else around me to ensure that they're serving customers the way that I want them to be served.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you use a CRM?
I do. Yep. So we use HubSpot.
Oh, cool. Yeah, great. I haven't used that one yet, but I've heard good things. Mm-hmm. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I hate collecting from clients. So with growth, there comes some opportunities for different payment terms that maybe you're a little bit more customer friendly upfront and giving them some more leeway. And but then there's kind of some AR balance issues kind of earlier on in our career or kind of company that was not the most enjoyable conversations. Yeah. And but it's something you have to do.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I love that I'm able to kind of control the ship and control my own destiny, and everything, all the blood, sweat, and tears that I put into it is I get to help out other businesses, and I get to be able to create a business that I'm proud of and that I'm passionate about. And that at the end of the day, I could always just quit, wrap up shop and stop, but I'm hungry for more. And I've always had that strong work ethic, but I like the fact that you can just control everything, and everything's within your control. Everything's within your reach. And you just need to be able to kind of surround yourself by the right people and have the right strategy in place, and really have a team that shares your same vision.
What has been the biggest mindset shift in your small business growth journey?
Biggest mindset shift is that I think I'm also a little bit kind of OCD and a little bit of a perfectionist.
Me too.
And that's not exactly a conducive mindset, that everything has to be I think you need to be able to standardize your operations so that you do remove a lot of the guesswork. But I think the biggest mindset is that you can't expect yourself to be able to do everything, because you probably have a certain way that you serve your customers, but you need to be able to be okay with kind of letting go of the vine and positioning other employees and your team members around you to be able to deliver kind of and treat your customers and be able to create the same product the same way that you always want to. But you got to be okay with some mistakes happening along the way and be comfortable with that. And when they do happen, realize that many times it comes down to kind of not having a standardized operating procedure around that, not having the right process in place, or maybe there's better training that maybe we could provide so that they do actually treat your customers or follow that process a little bit better.
What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I think that you need to be able to set goals appropriately. And I think that they need to be measurable, and you need to be able to report and meet on and put meetings in place so that you're constantly making progress to all of those goals. So we operate on EOS. It stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And we meet every single week for our level 10 meeting. We review our scorecard. We review and all of our rocks, which are kind of like your big quarterly goals, so that we're staying on track with our 1 year, our 3 year, and our 10-year picture.
Yeah, I love that fish tank analogy. I think it was Stephen Covey that wrote about it, the rocks and the pebbles and the sand. It's a great one. EOS, where is that something you guys developed, or is that from someone else?
Yep, that's developed. No, I guess it's not developed by us. It is developed by Gino Wickman. So it's called EOS Worldwide, I believe is the total organization. But it's a great operating model for small entrepreneurs and business owners.
Right, I'm going to have a look at that one. Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. GrowSmallBusiness.com. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
As we've added people to our team, we've constantly kind of, what we do is we actually, not only are we kind of following the same interview process where we already had all of that training in place, but we also do actually make them take a personality assessment to ensure that they actually mesh with the culture of our team. So earlier on, we didn't always have those personality tests available to us or at our disposal. So there were a handful of individuals that weren't aligned with our culture, weren't really aligned with our vision or core values. So I think it's important that obviously not only on paper that you have that at least their prerequisites and their background, their education, their experience. Hey, they're probably capable of doing that job. But at the end of the day, if they're going to clash with other team members, then, or maybe their work ethic or their attitude isn't correct, then those are usually the employees that they don't end up lasting too long.
Yeah, there's two things I look for in recruitment. That's attitude and aptitude. And that attitude part obviously fits into the culture question as well. Which personality model do you use? Myers-Briggs, DISC, or something else?
We use this other model. I actually get it through one of our advisors. It's called Acumax.
Right.
ACUMAX. But it does a pretty cool like personality test.
Yep. Great.
There's also like Colby. There's the Myers-Briggs, and there's a ton of them out there now.
Yep. What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
For me, this is going to probably sound like a weird response, but I think you need to be very vulnerable and naked. And what that means is that don't put up I think you need to make sure that you're actually telling everyone exactly how you feel and being, I guess, approachable in every sense of the word and owning up to your own mistakes. And I think something that for me is trying to just be more relatable to those around me, but then at the same time, making sure that we're very transparent in all of our communication. And at the same time, caring more so about the employees as a person, who they are outside of work, than the fact that we're just paying them for a job. And we meet with all of our employees on a weekly basis with our leadership team. And it's not so much like, obviously I'm more than happy to kind of move you around if you're happier in the other place, but I always want to kind of make sure that, hey, whatever we're asking you to do, is this something that you actually enjoy? And if it's not something that you enjoy and you don't like doing it, then, hey, like, how could I get you to a better place where you'd rather be at? Would you rather be in this area of the business? Or, hey, if our business isn't even the right business for you, then, hey, I'd be happy to write you a referral or see if I can make any other connections. And I think it's that type of kind of really trying to help everyone out type mentality, that's being transparent, open channels of communication. And I mean, we do this all, and we're all remote. And I think that says something about ourselves.
Just on that point of helping team members move on that aren't a good fit, I saw on Chris's that from Training, his LinkedIn feed recently, he's gone the Zappos path of offering team members $5,000 to go somewhere else if they're not happy. Zappos introduced that 10 years ago. After 2 weeks, every new employee was offered $5,000 to leave. And so I think that's a great mechanism to make that decision pretty quickly. The employee makes the decision pretty much for you.
Yep.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
As far as work-life balance, I probably haven't done as good of a job, but I try to put together a really good, for myself, I guess. I've been doing a great job for myself, because I'm just eager and hungry to grow as fast as possible. At the same time, what I do try to do is I do try to actually block out dedicated time that I can spend with my wife, and making sure that I do at least allocate some dedicated downtime to be able to relax mentally and take some time off to be able to really kind of remove the phone, any email, any type of client obligations. But for other employees, I think one of the benefits of working remotely is that, hey, you have the flexibility to kind of work whatever hours you want to work. I mean, if you're more of in a client-facing role, you do need to be able to be available kind of during normal working hours of probably like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But for others, if you're more of a night owl, or maybe just, even if from the client side, if you don't have those meetings earlier in the morning, and you want to kind of just take the morning off and just starts at noon and just kind of work another 8 hours, then, I mean, you do have the flexibility. And so we kind of allow that type of autonomy and that type of balance, because when you're at home, you might have some children around, and you might have some other activities or errands you might need to run, where it's easier to take care of it during the week. And if you have the flexibility with your work schedule, you're offered that freedom.
It's a double-edged sword, that old adage: find a job you love and you do something you love, and you never work a day in your life. But especially for business owners, I think that sometimes can go a bit too far, and it can be, you love it too much and you work just a little bit, too many hours. It's a challenge.
Yep.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
It's difficult to be able to quantify that. I guess I run every single day, or I cycle. And on every single run or every single cycle, it's usually about a 30-minute run or like an hour-long cycle ride. I'm reading or listening to an audiobook, or I'm listening to kind of a business self-help book. So do the math there. I guess that's probably
great.
at least 3-4 hours every single week.
Yep.
And then I usually try to read another book outside of that, or attend some additional webinars that might be interesting to us, or could potentially kind of expose or kind of offer up a new experience. I'm also in EO, or EOA rather, which is the accelerator version of EO. It stands for Entrepreneurs Organization. And so that organization is all about learning and sharing other experiences, and how you might be able to apply those experiences to solve maybe some of the issues that you have within your business. And so that's also kind of afforded me with a lot of professional development as well.
Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
I have, yeah. So started off with one other sales coach, and have now moved to a different organization called Cultivate Advisor. And I'm working with an awesome advisor right now, and Dan Smith. And actually from EO, we've got an accountability coach as well, Mark Beelan, who's really, really cool, and has offered up a ton of sagacious advice. And then I've also gotten a mentor out of EO as well, Michael Rosenbaum, who's really been pivotal, and brought up a ton of really, really great ideas as far as figuring out kind of staff capacity, and figuring out kind of workloads and managing. Yeah, he's more so on like the people side, and kind of Dan's kind of helped a lot with the sales, and just kind of Mark's kind of helped with a lot of the accountability. So
great. Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
I don't know. I have some mentors and some coaches, and I kind of have a leadership team, but not necessarily a true, I guess you could say the advisors are kind of between that, and the leadership team is sort of our board.
Well, Chris, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
I would say the hardest thing I would say probably overcoming obscurity. When you first start off, you're a dime a dozen. No one knows who you are. You need to be able to build up brand awareness, and you need to be able to differentiate yourself from the masses. And I think that's usually the hardest thing to overcome. We operate in a niche industry. What we do is fairly niche, so it hasn't been as challenging to differentiate yourself. But I think overcoming obscurity and building out your brand is, when you're first starting off, is probably one of the harder things.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Actually, probably one of the ones you mentioned earlier was E-Myth by Michael Gerber. But just to give you another one, because not to repeat the same one, I would say Jim Collins' Good to Great has been awesome, as well as trying to think of probably the Stephen Covey, 5 Disciplines of the 7 Habits was awesome for me too.
Have you read 40X, 4 Disciplines of Execution? One of Covey's sons,
yes,
co-author, and that's a good one as well. Yeah, the E-Myth is the book I recommend anyone start, especially starting, but even going on that growth journey. You read that first. I wish I had read that earlier. And Jim Collins' first book, Built to Last, is really, really awesome as well.
Mm-hmm.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Yeah, I listen to Built to Sell radio a lot. It's John Warlow. I think it's the same name of his book, or one of his books. It's a really, really good podcast that talks about the entire business from kind of infancy until kind of exits, and some of the mistakes that have kind of happened along those ways of scaling the business and what happened during the sale. I find that that's really helpful, as well as some of the HubSpot's Academy training, some of the for some marketing, some sales. Also listen to some of the Asana podcast. We use Asana for all of our project management. And there's also a Trainual actually puts out a lot of really great content too. So we listen to a lot of their webinars just because we do build a lot of their content on their platform. And then on top of that, there's another sales platform, or not platform, but like academy called Sales Gravy by Jeb Blount, and he puts on a lot of really cool courses and kind of trainer videos and webinars that have been really informative too.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
It's kind of difficult to answer that for all businesses, but I would say probably just a CRM. I think would probably apply to just about everyone. If you can understand your customers, if you can track all this information in one single location, you can communicate with them efficiently, quickly, understand trends in buying behavior is probably the first one. I think when I first started off, with just like a Google Sheet and tracking some names and some emails, and this come a long way with CRM of being able to track and log all these emails so that you can always be knowledgeable anytime you go into those conversations.
Final, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
I think the first thing you got to tell yourself is that you need to put in the work that you want to get out of it. And you need to be fully committed, and you need to believe in yourself, and you need to surround yourself with people that are making you a better person and that are not bringing you down or telling you that you're going to fail. Or I think it's okay to have some exposure to some constructive criticism, but really trying to immerse yourself in communities that'll really support you in your growth, and just staying disciplined in everything that you do.
Great. Thank you very much for your time today, Chris. I think the audience get a lot of value out of what you shared with us. Terrific journey. Congratulations to you and the team, now around 8 to where you're at the moment. And I think we'll try and have you back on in a year or so, because I expect you to have a lot more team members and getting a lot closer to those 6,000 businesses a year, helping them. Yeah, of course. Well, thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it. That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.